Good evening. This is Channel 12 News Tonight.
Does this look familiar to you? You're standing 5 feet away from a very makeable putt for par, and instead of relaxing over it, knowing that you can make it, you get tight and nervous because you've blown it a million times. Kathy Corbin is with us today, and Kathy, I guess this is where everyone's score just disappears.
Right, Mark, and yours could really use some help on this one also. The most common made mistake on the putting green is that your head moves towards the hole as you make the stroke, causing you to push or pull the shot. It's important when you're putting to keep your head absolutely still so your shoulders and your club face remain squared down your target line. Have a spouse, a friend, or your pro put their hand next to your head so that you can feel whether or not you're moving into their hand. So it's important to concentrate on keeping your head still. That will allow you to let your shoulders, your club face, and everything go straight down your target line. Like this. It's in the hole!
Take a look at this little guy. Will he grow up to be a major leaguer? Well, maybe, but that's a question that only time can answer. But herein lies a serious problem. Major league parents with minor league kids.
Run, Daddy, run! Run!
Not all kids are cut out to do competitive sports. Some kids just aren't good athletes. Some children just don't do well with the pressure of a team sport.
So why then will so many kids be forced to play Little League baseball or T-ball when they really don't want to?
The indoor child that's forced into an outdoor sort of sport, he's trying not to let down his parents, and that puts an awful lot of pressure. He's more concerned about performance for the parents, often more susceptible to injury as a result.
In an effort to change things, Little League officials are holding seminars to help teach parents the difference between positive motivation and excessive pressure. We know that the object of this game is to knock the pins down, but have you ever wondered how your ball gets back to you? And maybe after all these years, the question has to be asked. What really happens back there behind that wall?
When the ball goes through the pins, it hits what we call a pit cushion. You knock the pins into the pit, it's oscillating back and forth to where it'll shake the pins back into the pinwheel and the ball to get them out of the way.
After it hits a pit cushion, the ball goes up a set of lift rods.
At the same time, the pins that you knock down are being taken up the pinwheel.
Now, if that doesn't impress you, how about this? An infrared scanner that automatically counts the pins that are left standing and records your score. But of course, one little breakdown, one loose screw, and the whole system can fall apart. And when you take into account that they average 13,000 games per lane per year with 40 lanes, there's a lot that can go wrong.
The equipment isn't running, we are making money.
If you think these guys have it tough, though, think about how it must have been years ago when one man had to catch your ball, return it, and set the pins back up. The evolution of a uniquely American sport, bowling. Don Cloud knew it would be easier said than done. I was doing my part to keep him loose and relaxed, but the pressure of throwing a football for 25 grand was starting to build.
Are you nervous? Yes, absolutely. But I didn't sleep last night, so that'll offset the adrenaline I got going now, so I hope I can hit it.
One by one, the contestants stepped up and tried to hit the target 10 yards away. Some missed, but a lot of them hit. Finally, it was Don's turn, and with close to 100 ASU faithful cheering him on, Don the Snake gave it his best shot. Missed it by that much. Don still picked up $500 and sent his New Year's best back to an old high school friend watching in the valley.
Hi, Janine. Long time no see. That's it? That's all you want to say? Well, what was she like in high school? Oh, she was wonderful. It's a great girl. Yeah. Beautiful. Sweet. Has she changed? I don't know.
No, she hasn't. She's still beautiful.
I haven't seen her in 20 years, so.
Bill, Jeremy Roenick will skate tonight, and after a long, drawn-out, and sometimes bitter negotiation, he said all along this is where he wanted to be.
And I want to thank you very much for sticking with me and believing in me as a hockey player. And I guarantee you guys won't regret it. I'm going to come in, I'm going to work as hard as I possibly can and try to bring as much excitement and enthusiasm to Phoenix as possible.
Roenick with the puck heading in, he scores! Roenick is the real deal, a four-time All-Star who combines a scorer's touch with a love for combat.
It's part of who I am. I like to play the physical part of the game. I get just as big a kick as making a big hit as I do making a nice pass or scoring a goal.
He's similar to Keith Tkachuk and even Dallas Drake, where they're so quick and get so much speed going that when they hit somebody, some of the checks are their highlight reels. You know, you keep them on there for a long time, and certainly I love watching that stuff like that.
Roenick is one of those guys who doesn't need a lot of motivation, but after going through a nasty divorce with the Blackhawks, he said he can't wait to skate against Chicago.
I don't think I can explain that to a T. Let's put it this way, it's going to be, it'll be a lot of fun.
One other note, the Coyotes at 3-1 are already one of the most surprising teams in the league. But now with the addition of Roenick, look out. Bill, back to you. When he isn't busy working at KGME Radio, you can usually find Evan Shigaris working at his favorite pastime, studying sports stats, especially birthdays.
How do you know this?
Well, Mark, it's called a photographic memory. I have the ability to remember dates, pictures, any types of information like that, statistical information.
Let's switch sports for a second. Kevin Johnson.
Kevin Johnson, March 4th, 66.
Keith Tkachuk.
March 28th, 71.
Mark Messier.
January 18th, 1961.
Patrick Ewing.
August 5th, 1962. Georgetown grad, 84.
Bill Buckner.
Number one
Bill
in
Buckner.
85.
Bill Buckner.
Coming up December 14th, 1949. Played for the Dodgers. He also played for the Cubs and my Boston Red Sox.
Well, there's really no way to corroborate this right now as we sit here.
We're going to look it up.
We did, and Evan passed with flying colors. And while you might assume with that kind of a talent for dates and statistics that Shigaris would have been a straight-A student, in truth, he was...
I was awful in school. I'll tell you, I was bad. I was a 2.0 grade point average in high school. I had to really work to get good grades in college, and I transferred a couple of schools in there. But it's the memory thing. Let me state, Mark, that the memory thing is basically on things that I'm really familiar with. It's not for everything. I mean, I couldn't remember 50 presidents, but if I knew something, I have the innate ability to remember everything around that for sports.
How about his birthday? You don't know his birthday?
Yes, I do. August 30th. He told me because you met Bruce Jacobs and Jim McKenzie, and I got McKenzie's off the bat. McKenzie was so surprised that I got it that he was flabbergasted that I got it.
Who do I share a birthday with?
You share birthdays with two of my favorite Boston heroes, because I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. Robert Parrish, the Chief.
Huge.
He's August 30th, 53, and Ted Williams, God bless him.
That's
August
big.
30th, 1918.
And who does he share birthdays with?
He shares birthdays with no one.
Let's say this is Hakeem tonight.
Okay, well, first of all, you got to just get him.
All right, so let's say he does have some sort of position on you where you're in front of him and he gets actually behind you.
Then you got to just throw him out of the way real gentle.
All right, here's the ball.
Who is this, Charles?
This is Charles.
Okay. I never touched him.
You've got to admit that's a pretty good shot for a kid who was born just 17 months ago. Maybe it's in the genes. Young Matthew Tkachuk has his father's shot and his smile.
What is this?
A ball.
Which Teletubby plays with the ball?
No one could blame Dad for smiling either. Take a look at Keith Tkachuk's summer home in Cape Cod, complete with a gym, a shower big enough for the entire Coyotes team, a poker room, and a pool room. But if you ask Keith Tkachuk what he's most proud of, he won't show you his all-star jerseys. He'll show you a scorecard.
And if you get a look closely at the scorecard, it says Bob. That's not just any Bob. That's Bobby Orr. You know, second hole, I got a hole-in-one on a par 3, and I had to finish the round. And afterwards, he took the card, and we signed it, and he said he's going to get me something, and this is what he did for me, Bobby Orr.
That's awesome. Now, a couple of months from now, when Tkachuk heads back to the Valley, no doubt one of the highlights of his summer will be the night of July 13th. That's the night he took his father, his grandfather, his brother, and a bunch of his friends to the last All-Star game ever at Fenway Park.
Well, I could never imagine ever doing something like this. This is the best thing in the world. Just see the reaction of them, just going to the game with my grandfather, my father, my brother. It's the best thing I've ever experienced in my entire life.
They wanted to see the likes of Sir Charles and Shaq. But in order to get into the sold-out game, they had to step up and pray for the tray. Vernon Hicks was finding the range for a while, but then started feeling the heat. Patrick McGowan wasn't. Pat, who plays his high school ball at Paradise Valley, turned out to be the big winner.
It felt pretty good. At first, I was really nervous, and then once you get going, it was fun.
But the day also featured a little comic relief in the form of a media three-point contest.
I wonder if MC ever shot a basket in his life. Uh-oh, he's starting to hit. Man, Charles Barkley don't have anything on MC.
All right, who won? Oh, okay. Yeah, you did. All right. And? You're the man.
Today it was 2.5 hours just to get in on a Sunday. It was fantastic. I love it.
A sea of RVs outside the track, while on the track, millions of dollars rolled by in the fastest billboards in the world. Now, with the kind of crowd they had out here today, everybody was doing big business, from the t-shirt vendors to the guys who sell cigars to, of course, the hot dog and hamburger people. But there's one guy who you wouldn't think would be doing a lot of business, but actually was. You're the cappuccino man. I figured you'd be sort of dead over here, but you're not.
No, I haven't been. This morning we were extremely busy.
What was the hottest selling brand of cappuccino?
The Mochas.
What is your favorite cappuccino out here?
Budweiser.
I'm Mark Curtis, Arizona's news station. You guys know where we're going today? We're going to the Pet Psychic.
At All-Star Grooming in Scottsdale, they're offering something more than just the usual bath and brush. Would you believe psychic dog readings?
Just a minute.
Our precious pooches. We feed them, we love them. They really are like members of the family. What if we could understand what they're thinking, what they're saying, what they want? Dr. Brandy Howe, better known as Dr. B, thinks that she can.
Like I said, I've been doing it professionally since 1996, and some of the stories are amazing that they will tell you. I mean, I couldn't make this stuff up.
I know what some of you are thinking, and I was thinking the same thing.
The reporter in me is a little skeptical.
Absolutely.
Which I'm sure you can understand.
Absolutely. And I always say my biggest skeptics become my biggest fans.
All right, let's think about this. What if she really does have some sort of ability, sort of like a psychic Dr. Doolittle, to tap into a dog's brain? I brought our 3 dogs in to find out.
Everything's good. She does get gas every once in a while.
Yes, she does.
So.
Yes, she does.
Okay, TMI.
Focus.
But Jackie's a big girl, and big dogs pass gas. So I wasn't sold. But then...
Does she have a fear of water?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have a pool?
Yeah.
Does she go near it?
No.
No.
The newest member of our family took a dive.
Okay, that's just weird. That video is from the night we first brought Jackie home 3 years ago. I was soaking wet because she had fallen into the pool, and I had to go in after her. There is no way that the doctor could have known that.
And I can tell you, just like the movie A Dog's Purpose, that she has been with you before. And she has, and goosebumps. And goosebumps are confirmation your body's saying the truth. She's been with you in many lives before.
What Dr. B, who calls herself an animal intuitive light worker, believes is that all dogs communicate, and all humans, if they work on it, have the ability to psychically connect.
He's more using like the word papa.
Okay.
Okay,
like grandpa.
and they will, like grandpa, only it's not, I'm not greeting grandpa, I'm getting more like papa.
Okay.
That he's using for you.
Okay.
Again, there's no way she could have known that, but it's true. Brody is my daughter's dog. We sort of consider him our grandpuppy, and when he stays with us, I'm jokingly referred to as Papa.
So when they talk to you, are they speaking English?
Yes, I have had some that got frustrated with me because they were speaking another language which I didn't understand. Millie, do you have anything else that you want to say? She's really just happy. She's very thankful that she was rescued.
We did rescue Millie, but she rescued us just as much. And as far as the psychic part,
and there's a shake we wanted.
Maybe I'll just have to leave that up to you.
Good job.
Denver, the mile-high city, home to some 3 million people in the greater metro. They're people who enjoy the great outdoors, their beloved Broncos, a vibrant downtown,
and in many cases, legal cannabis.
Marijuana was around for decades and decades, and it's still around. It's just that it's now being sold in tightly controlled stores.
Mason DeVert is a former Arizonan who moved to Colorado and helped write what would become the framework for Amendment 64, which legalized pot and made Colorado ground zero for the green rush in the U.S. More from Mason in a moment. We'll also hear from a state trooper, a concerned mother, and a pediatric toxicologist to learn if Colorado can thrive and get along with legalized pot.
We have now seen 6 years of kids that have now grown up in Colorado with adult use marijuana legalization, and some of the things that we have seen are deeply concerning.
That's Henny Lastly, a mother and the head of a group called Smart Colorado that advocates for tougher marijuana laws for Colorado's children.
Everyone should be able to agree that the science is sound, that it's not good for the development of the adolescent brain.
The problem, she says, is that pot in 2019 is not the same stuff that people were smoking back in the day at Woodstock.
When you have marijuana that's smoked that has an average potency of near 20%, when back in the day it was more in the 2 to 3% range, that's a significantly different product.
But what she's really against is easy access to kids and the strength of the pot. So we came to Children's Hospital Colorado to meet with Dr. Sam Wang, a pediatric toxicologist.
In pediatrics, we think of the age range of when you're pregnant to when you're just born to all the way you're a teenager. And we've seen that marijuana legalization impact that entire breadth of population.
But here comes a surprise.
By implementing these rules and regulations, the numbers, even though they're continuing to grow, they'd be even larger if we didn't pass some of these rules and regulations.
And that's been Dr. Wang's big push. If you can't put the genie back in the bottle, at least make sure that everything is clearly labeled and as tightly controlled as possible.
As marijuana becomes more available, it becomes more available in the house. So just like any other household product, pharmaceutical, drug, when it's more available, it's more in the home, and when it's in the home, kids get into it.
Dr. Wang says he hasn't seen any evidence of an up-and-coming generation of stoners, but, and this is big, pot really hasn't been legal long enough in Colorado to get a clear picture. Same goes for DUIs with pot.
I want to say it's out there, but I don't know if I really saw it as a big spike. It was just basically the same as it was always doing.
Gary Cutler is one of the Colorado State Patrol's master troopers. Over the years, he has seen it all. And now what he sees is a society that's transitioning.
We've always had marijuana in our state and all these other places. It's just been illegal. So they tried to hide it a bit more from us.
Do you think that a state like Colorado can eventually learn to get along with being a place that has legalized cannabis?
We're very close to that. It's taken, I'll say probably law enforcement has been the tougher one of it. It's hard to change your thought after all these years of patrolling for it and looking for it, and then realize that now you have something that was illegal, now is legal.
But still not legal behind the wheel. And now courts and prosecutors in Colorado find themselves in a gray-green area.
If we come across a crash or just a stop and they have marijuana and alcohol in it, usually we're going to go for the alcohol on it because people understand that more.
And for someone who's made a living enforcing law and order, this brave new world feels like a step back.
We spent all these years teaching people about drinking and driving, and now we feel like we're having to start from square one again with marijuana. And that's all it is. We need to make sure that people are understanding it's legal, it is a drug, and it still can be dangerous.
In the end, many told us, look, people in Colorado have always smoked pot. The question was, should we regulate, control, and make money from it, or continue to fight a losing battle?
Colorado's generated significant revenue from cannabis sales, about $266 million per year, more than $1 billion since the state started regulating marijuana for adult use.
So what are we left with in the state where it all started? First, the potency. The stuff today is much stronger and more concentrated. Second, road safety. The jury's still out on pot DUIs, but our trooper says an alcohol charge is more likely to stick. Third, childhood use. It's happening, but there were no major spikes. And finally, revenue. Yes, the green gold rush is a real thing, but it's not a cure-all.
And why do you think that the people against it just think that this green fairy, it will lead to the moral decay of America?
Well, there are some folks who do not like marijuana, or they do not like the people they associate with marijuana, and they will always want it to be as illegal or unavailable as possible. But in the real world, where marijuana is going to be available, whether it's legal or not, it's better that we control it, we make sure it's safe, we tax it, and we make sure only the right people are getting their hands on it.
Hey guys, this is my wife Abby, and we're here in the kitchen to show how Abby makes her grandmother's brisket. About twice a year, her family gets all excited because they know she's going to make this brisket. We only get it twice a year. Everybody has to watch their cholesterol, but those 2 times, boy, oh boy. All right, so you're going to kind of walk us through this.
You need about 3 to 6 pounds of first cut trimmed brisket, about 2 onions, sliced potatoes, and some carrots. I use Montreal steak seasoning, garlic powder, about 2 cups of coffee, and 2 cups of ketchup.
The coffee, and that's really the secret ingredient to this.
Right, most recipes use the onion soup. Ours doesn't. The coffee kind of tenderizes the meat.
Now, one of the keys to this is you got to give your meat a really good rub down before you put it in the Dutch oven. So I'm taking this steak seasoning and I'm really working it into the meat. And I'm going to do both sides. This is garlic powder.
There's no salt in the recipe.
Okay, there's no salt in the recipe.
You're going to put it in the Dutch oven and brown both sides. Ooh, you're just looking for it to get browned on both sides because it's going to do its cooking inside the oven. And you preheat your oven to 325. So that's good enough. And then you're going to add the onions, 2 cups of onions, and let those brown.
So while Abby's working on the veggies, I want to show you how we make this special gravy. This 2 cups of coffee right here, black coffee. Also, just good old ketchup, which gives it the sweetness. And then I'm going to take that and I'm going to whisk that together.
I pulled out most of the onions, and then I'm going to set the brisket right back on top of the remaining. I'm going to add the onions back on top of the brisket. I'm going to add in some potatoes and baby carrots. Now we're going to add the gravy that we made on top.
So now this whole thing is going to go in the oven, and the cool thing about the Dutch oven, you've prepped it on the stove, but now this goes right in the oven.
Okay, it's been about 2.5 hours, and you take it out and you slice it, put the vegetables around it, pour the juice on top, and you're good to go.
You don't even need a knife. It's just gorgeous. Good?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's delicious.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
War, it seems, is always happening somewhere. On the morning of December 7th, 1941, the world would once again become soaked in the blood of its sons and daughters as the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, bringing America into World War II. It's hard to believe in this desolate stretch of desert that Arizona's second largest city once stood. It's a city that popped up almost overnight after an incident 2,700 miles away in Pearl Harbor. And then 3 years later, just as quickly, it was gone.
Well, again, I'm looking back at what happened.
Dick Matsuishi doesn't remember much about that time.
And as an adult, I'm wondering how this could have happened.
He was only 4 on that February day in 1942 when President Franklin Roosevelt issued Executive Order 9066.
A state of war.
An order meant to calm the fears of millions of Americans in the wake of Pearl Harbor and a growing mistrust of Japanese Americans.
What's it say on the bottom?
June 1943.
Okay.
Build
by Japanese residents.
Yeah, that's the one.
Right here.
Dick and his family and thousands of other Japanese Americans were rounded up, put on a bus, and forced to sell their homes and businesses, and then shipped off to internment camps across the western U.S. One of them was the Poston Camp on the Colorado River Indian Reservation near Parker, Arizona.
They found out it was war hysteria, prejudice, and lack of political leadership. And I think that's probably one of the major ones, was the lack of political leadership. It should have never happened.
As you look around at what's left of the camp, you can't help but hear the footsteps, feel the confusion of those men, women, and children suddenly confined, all wondering, how could our country do this to us? And while many felt that way, Dick was only 4 years into his life.
Well, looking back, I had a ball. Because I was young, I didn't know what was going on. I did what my parents told me to do. I played with kids that were my same ethnicity, and we had a good time because we didn't know any better.
The months at Poston turned into years. Christmases came and went. Romances were kindled. Children were born. And for Dick's father, who had been a farmer in California, the family was guided by a simple Japanese belief.
Yeah, there's a term called shikataganai, and that is basically what you indicated. If something happens that you have no control over, you try to do the best you can with what you have.
1946.
And so it went, until June of 1946, when President Harry Truman issued another executive order, this time allowing all of the Japanese prisoners to go home. But to what? The vast majority had to start over.
There's a few that are bitter. They will never forget what happened and never forgive the government for doing it. But I think most of us think, hey, it's in the past, it's gone. Just make sure it doesn't happen again.
As for Dick, well, he returned home to Southern California, went to school, became a dentist, and married the love of his life, who was from Arizona, and the place where he was once incarcerated as a young boy became his home.
It's been a good life. I met my wife, who's from Arizona, and that's how I'm here. And we've had a good life. We've had 3 girls, and we've got 5 grandchildren, and we're pretty close, and they're all doing good.
There's an old expression about war. The true soldier fights not because he hates what's in front of him, but because he loves what's behind him. Lieutenant Colonel Charles Walling loved what was behind him. Arizona, a beautiful wife, a son whose birth he had missed, and another on the way, which is why he volunteered to fly what would be his 100th mission. It would be his ticket home, so this time he'd be there.
For him to take that flight with a navigator that he's never done so that he could be home for my birth, honestly, it was always kind of a burden that I kind of shouldered, like a sense of guilt.
For years, that guilt was crippling for Mike Walling, the son that Charles would never get to meet. On August 8th, 1966, on that volunteer mission, on his final flight of the day, Charles Walling was shot down near Saigon. Walling was considered missing in action and presumed dead. But there was always that lingering question, could he still be alive out there? It was a question that remained unanswered until December of 2011, when the Wallings got a call that remains had been found. There were bone fragments and a belt buckle, all positively identified. Lieutenant Colonel Charles Milton Walling was finally coming home. We were there when his remains were interred with full military honors in Arlington National Cemetery. You know, we thought that would be the end of this story, that the Wallings finally had some closure and life would go on. But then, one night late last year, Michael's phone rang. You get a call and you've got this opportunity to go to Vietnam. Was there any hesitation at all to go there, or was it just, yes, we're in?
Immediate, yes, we're in. And it was an opportunity that Dina and I never in our wildest, and my brother Jeff, never in our wildest dreams thought we would have. So to have an opportunity to go and be where my father's crash site, and even more important to me, were his final moments, and experience that, really brought a connection that in our wildest dreams we never thought we'd ever have.
My heart was exploding. I was so happy for them and myself, because I've lived most of my life with this. He's could have been my dad too.
Say hello to the camera, everybody.
Hello, camera.
And so off they went. Mike, his wife Dina, and 2 other couples who had also lost loved ones in Vietnam.
Dad, to you.
Maybe this would finally give him the closure he'd been missing, to visit the crash site where his father died, but more importantly, where he lived.
The visit to Cameron, which was incredibly important to us because that's where he was stationed, that's where he lived, and he was on the beach, and it was beautiful. And one thing that kept going through my mind was that I'm so fortunate, we are so fortunate, that my father got to spend his last days, hours, minutes in this amazing beach location before he hopped in his plane.
And at the crash site, Mike was finally able to have that conversation he'd waited a lifetime to have.
When you had that quiet conversation with your dad, what did you say?
So without getting into, the exact words, it was really just a way to say, I love you, I'm sorry we never got to meet. Thank you for instilling in us the values that we are.
But this trip wasn't just for American families. It was part of the Two Sides Project, an organization that connects sons and daughters whose fathers died on opposite sides of the battlefield.
A toast to our Vietnamese friends.
Yes.
Thank you for making a dream come true.
The trip that Mike and Dina thought would be about closure turned out to be something much more powerful: understanding and acceptance that war is blind to the death and multi-generational damage it leaves behind.
I had the most relief with my anger was when we were meeting with the sons and daughters of the Vietnamese killed in action, and hearing them say the same things I felt, which were all I wanted to ever do was hug my father and say, Dada, or things like that. And knowing that they had almost those exact same emotions, I really did feel love for those people.
Finding peace where there was once war, understanding where there was once hate, and healing for a heart that for so long was broken.